The X-Men movie timeline is probably the most complicated timeline in movie history. It's also kind of a mess, but in this video I'm going to try my best to explain every important event that takes place in this timeline. With that out of the way, let's just jump right into this. So, the earliest we see of the X-Men timeline is sometime in ancient Egypt, showing Apocalypse as a child using his powers to build the pyramids. Then, around 70 or 80 years later, Apocalypse gains the powers of another mutant, so he becomes immortal. But because the pyramids Apocalypse built had the worst possible planning, Apocalypse goes into a coma. Forever. Far later on, in 1845, a young child named James Howlett is enraged after his stepfather is killed by his biological father. I don't know, this scene is really confusing and stupid. Point is, he discovers he has claws, kills his father, and runs away with his brother, Sabretooth. And then they basically go on to fight in every war ever. Later on in 1941, Erich Lehnsherr is captured by the Nazis and put in Auschwitz. He discovers he has the power to control metal, and another mutant, Sebastian Shaw, forces him to use the power again or else he'll kill Erich's mother. Erich fails, and Shaw kills his mother, and then goes on to do experiments on Erich so he can use his powers far more greatly. Meanwhile, Charles Xavier catches Raven stealing his food, but he realizes she's a mutant like him, and he offers her to live with him so she never has to steal food again. In 1945, James Howlett, who now just calls himself Logan, is in some kind of prison in Nagasaki, and saves the life of Yashida from the atomic bomb fire. From that point on, Yashida owes Logan and plans to somehow repay him. In 1962, a CIA agent named Maria McTaggart discovers a group of mutants led by Sebastian Shaw who plan on starting a war between America and Russia. She manages to find Charles Xavier and Raven, and they reveal themselves to the government. The government recruits them, and they end up recruiting even more mutants to take down Shaw. While they're training to fight Shaw, Charles and Erich soon become friends. They find out they're hiding in a submarine right near where the American and Russian ships are about to battle. The team gets to their submarine, and Erich lifts it up and puts it on land. Erich then kills Shaw out of anger and tells everyone the soldiers are the real enemies and to join his Brotherhood of Mutants. The battleships then shoot missiles at them, and Erich attempts to make the missiles go the other way and kill the soldiers instead. McTaggart tries to stop this happening by shooting at Erich, but he deflects all the bullets, and one of them hits Charles Xavier, permanently paralyzing him from the waist down. Erich manages to recruit Raven and some other mutants to be in his Brotherhood. Erich then calls himself Magneto, with Raven calling herself Mystique. From that point until at least 1981, Charles takes a drug that allows him to walk, but also takes away his powers. In 1963, Erich, or Magneto, is somehow involved in a JFK assassination. He made the bullet curve and hit JFK, and unsurprisingly, he's locked up in a prison underneath the Pentagon. In 1973, Mystique kills Bolivar Trask, a man who hates mutants and plans to make Sentinels, robots designed to, well, kill all mutants. Mystique is immediately captured, and after Trask is killed by the hands of a mutant, the government actually sees a reason to build these robots and uses Mystique's DNA to make it happen. Sometime in the 70s, Logan and Sabretooth are offered by a man named William Stryker to join a team of mutant spies. They both agree and go on dangerous spy missions, but some events lead Logan to leave. He then starts a normal life with his new girlfriend in Canada. In 1981, Logan's girlfriend is killed by Sabretooth, and Logan attempts to kill Sabretooth, but he massively fails. Luckily though, William Stryker gives him bones, and therefore claws, made of adamantium, the most powerful metal, well, ever. Turns out though, Stryker also wanted to wipe Logan's memory so he could mind control him, and Logan isn't letting that happen, so he goes on a killing spree and eventually goes back to Stryker for revenge. Twist, Logan's girlfriend faked her death, so Logan would agree to get adamantium bones for Weapon X. But to be honest, that twist isn't really important. And it's also stupid. Logan then has to fight Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, who, for whatever reason, looks like this instead of this. He defeats Deadpool, but then William Stryker shoots him in the head with an adamantium bullet, which makes him lose most of his memories. Several years later, Professor Xavier and Magneto, who I guess got out of prison and became less evil, find Jean Grey, a mutant with telekinetic abilities. They find out she's sort of unstable or whatever, and bring her to Charles Xavier's school for gifted youngsters. A school where Professor X can teach mutant children how to use their powers for good. Sometime in the early 2000s, Rogue discovers her powers and is terrified, so she runs away. She comes across Logan and realizes he's a mutant like her, so she sneaks aboard his truck. Sabretooth then attacks them, but the X-Men swing in to protect Rogue and Logan. Logan wakes up in Professor Xavier's mansion and learns about Professor X and his school. After accidentally seriously hurting Logan, Rogue runs away again, but Magneto kidnaps her and plans to use her powers to absorb his powers so he can power a machine on top of the Statue of Liberty that sends an energy beam that will turn everyone in New York City into a mutant. I know it's stupid, but just roll with it. Logan then teams up with the X-Men, adopting the name Wolverine, and stops Magneto, and he is, once again, put in a highly secured prison. Not long after, a mutant called Nightcrawler is mind-controlled by William Stryker and attempts to kill the President of the United States. This, of course, leads to some serious anti-mutant debates, and the government allows William Stryker to launch an attack on Professor Xavier's school. During the attack, Stryker's men capture Professor Xavier along with some other mutants. Stryker then enters the school and is surprised to find Logan there, and Logan is just really confused. Before Logan can get any answers, Rogue and her boyfriend Iceman help Logan escape. Meanwhile, in Magneto's secured prison, Magneto escapes since this guy had too much iron injected into his blood by Mystique. Meanwhile, Logan, Rogue, Iceman, and Pyro eventually come across the rest of the X-Men who escaped, and Magneto, who agrees to help them. They sneak into Stryker's weird hideout next to a dam and free Professor X and all the other mutants. Sadly though, the dam collapses and Jean Grey risks her life to save the X-Men. About a year later, Jean Grey is revealed to be alive, but she's also evil and becomes the Dark Phoenix, and goes on to kill a bunch of mutants, including her boyfriend, Cyclops. Dark Phoenix then goes on to kill Professor X, but not really. Then she is sorta recruited by Magneto, and he lifts up the Golden Gate Bridge and puts it next to Alcatraz Island. The X-Men and Magneto's Brotherhood then have a big dumb battle, but Magneto is depowered, but not really. Logan then has to kill Jean Grey and is traumatized by the events, so he leaves the X-Men and just lives in the woods, I guess. In 2013, Logan is given an offer by Yoshida, the man he saved in World War II, to become mortal, but he declines and Yoshida is pretty upset. After a bunch of action scenes, he eventually gets Wolverine to come to his secret hideout and wears a mech suit so he becomes the Silver Samurai. Then he cuts Wolverine's claws off and then nearly kills him. Then they fight for a bit, and Wolverine just manages to kill Yoshida. 2 years later, Professor X is revealed to be alive somehow and has joined forces with Magneto, because they may or may not have to fight Sentinels, those robots designed to kill all mutants. In 2023, the Sentinels end up killing humans as well and have taken over the world. So Wolverine has to go back in time to stop Mystique from killing Trask, therefore the Sentinels wouldn't be built. He travels back to 1973 and gets Charles Xavier to help him out, but since he's taking that drug that takes away his abilities, he can't really do a lot to stop Mystique. So Wolverine recruits Peter Maximoff, a man who can easily stop Mystique from killing Trask, to bust Magneto out of prison, even though he's super evil and will likely betray them. After that's done, he doesn't even take Maximoff to come help them stop Mystique. Like, what are you even doing, mate? Anyway, they do somehow manage to stop Mystique from killing Trask, but then Magneto attempts to kill her and then betrays them. Charles then decides to no longer take the drug anymore, so he regains his powers. Mystique attempts to kill Trask again, but Charles is finally able to change Mystique's mind. After these events, it leads to there being an alternate timeline, and most of the events of X-Men Origins Wolverine, X-Men, X-Men 2, X-Men The Last Stand, and The Wolverine don't end up happening. So, later on in this timeline, in 1983, Apocalypse, that super powerful mutant who built the pyramids, is reawoken and recruits mutants Storm, Psylocke, Angel, and Magneto to be on his team. Apocalypse then tries to mind control Professor X so he can mind control everyone on the planet, but that doesn't end up working, so he just teleports into the school and kidnaps Professor X. Then, coincidentally, Stryker shows up and kidnaps Mystique, Maximoff, and McTaggart and brings them to his weird hideout. Cyclops, Nightcrawler, and Jean Grey sneak into the hideout to save them and manage to free Wolverine, who just got his adamantium claws. Wolverine goes on a complete killing spree and they end up being saved. They steal a jet and head to Egypt, where Apocalypse is going to steal Professor X's powers. The X-Men and Apocalypse have a big dumb battle, but they manage to kill Apocalypse, so problem solved. Nightcrawler, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Maximoff, and Mystique all join the X-Men and probably go on to have more mediocre adventures. Meanwhile, a mysterious group called Essex Corp go back to the weird hideout and collect some of Wolverine's blood. Maybe to clone him or something, I don't know. In 2015, Wade Wilson is diagnosed. Wait a second, how is Wade Wilson not 60 years old now? I know the events of X-Men Origins Wolverine didn't happen, but this guy was still around. So, is this Wade Wilson's son? Is this like Wade Wilson Jr.? Anyway, this Wade Wilson is diagnosed with cancer and seeks treatment from a super weird organization which could very well be Weapon X, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it turns out this organization actually has a much darker plan, and this guy named Francis, aka Ajax, is trying to turn Wade into a mutant slave. After a bunch of experiments, Wade transforms into a mutant. He then escapes and adopts the name Deadpool, and tracks down Francis for about a year. He then finally finds him and nearly kills him, but he gets away. Then he kidnaps Wade's girlfriend Vanessa to lure Deadpool so he can kill him. Deadpool and Francis fight, but Deadpool wins and kills Francis. Okay, so now you know basically everything that's happened in the X-Men movie timeline, and you won't be confused when you go see Logan. Well, if you see it. It doesn't look suitable for everyone. Still, I hope this video helped you out if you, like many other people out there, are super confused by the X-Men movie timeline. Anyway, thanks for watching. Remember to like this video, I really appreciate it. Leave a comment and subscribe for more videos like this one.